I would love it if we could have a flat tax, maybe like 15 or 12% just flat tax across the board, but that's a big stretch. What Trump has done is he is reaching for the stars by saying, let's completely abolish the IRS. But what did we land on? The big, beautiful bill. We landed on him being able to keep his Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that he incorporated in 2017. And now he extended that and made that permanent. Hey, I want to make sure that those tax rates don't jump back up to 39%. We have a 37% federal tax rate. But if we go back to 2017, bro, we were paying 39% in federal taxes. Pretty insane.
To a layman, though, going from 39 to 37, it's kind of just like, I mean, that's not like for all of the talk that people have been doing about cutting taxes, the Republicans are going to slash taxes, and then we go down 2%.
But it's not just that, though. It's every little tax bracket in between.
It's every tax bracket in between. You had 39% go to 37%. You had 35% go to 32%. You had 30% go to 28%. Now we have a 22% tax bracket instead of a 25% tax bracket. We have a 12% instead of a 15%. We have a 10% instead of a 12%. And they extended the tax brackets. So instead of you jumping from the 12% up to the 22%, after you made 150,000 and maybe a 200,000. So he extended your ability to get taxed at a higher rate and lowered the tax rates at the exact same time. But what he also did is he increased deductions across the board, primarily the standard deduction. The standard deduction is a deduction that you're given just if you breathe and make over $12,000, you get to take the standard deduction. In 2017, he increased the standard deduction from $6,000 to $12,000 for single individuals and from $12,000 to $24,000 for married couples. So if you're a married couple, you get a $24,000 deduction back in 2017 as a part of his Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. He also incorporated adjustments for inflation. So now that we're here in 2025, that standard deduction is $31,500. Think about where it was back in 2017. That's for married filing joint. And if you're single, it's $15,750.
So what does the average person stand to gain or lose from the big, beautiful bill?
The average person, and when I say average, I want to make sure that I say that correctly. The median income in the United States is right around $70,000. So the average person is going to see an increase in the amount of wages that they take home every single year because of the big, beautiful bill. The extension of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, the increase in the standard deduction, and the increase in the child tax credit. If you have a child, you went from claiming $2,000 to getting a $2,200 credit, and that's a refundable credit, at least up to $1,700.
Does that incentivize people to have a whole bunch of kids? Like, what's to stop someone, hypothetically speaking, from having 10 kids? And now just claiming, is there a limit to how many kids you can have?
No, there's not. You can claim the child tax credit based off of how many children you have, and it's $2,200 per child. And the reason why I like this is because we have seen less people having children here in the United States. And I think Trump has made that very known as his presidential campaign insinuated that he wanted to change tax rates for the child tax credit. When he increased the child tax credit to $2,200, he also came out and said, we need to have more children. He said that. What that means to me is that people that are in the lower to middle income will be receiving more refundable money, which in return makes them want to have more children.
So who benefits the most from this bill on a high level?
The wealthy, absolutely. There's no way around it. The wealthy will benefit the most from the big, beautiful bill.
Well, let's talk about one of the most popular ones, which is the no tax on tips. Could you explain this?
Yeah, so we were going back and forth around, are we going to have no taxes on tips? Are we going to have no taxes on overtime? And what we settled on is we get to deduct up to $25,000 of tips. So if you're receiving tipped income, like a lot of people do here in Las Vegas, you get to deduct up to $25,000 on your federal tax return, not on your state tax return. And it doesn't include payroll taxes, but that's a $25,000 deduction. The only issue is, it's only if your adjusted gross income is $150,000 or less. It phases out after that $150,000 if you're single, $300,000 if you're married filing joint. But when you look around the United States, I don't know if you guys have seen this, we have entered into a tip culture. I mean, every time I go to the gas station, every time I go grab a smoothie, somebody's asking me to tip 10, 15, 20%. America and its taxpayers live off of tipped income. This is a huge benefit to them. Being able to deduct the money that you're earning in tips is very, very awesome.
And that includes credit card transactions, right?
It does include credit card transactions as well.
And is there any way for, let's say, Jack to structure his income as a tip?
I feel like a lot of people are like,
you know?
how do I structure?
Yeah, NetSuite and Oracle, the sponsors of this podcast, if you could just send it to me as a tip, like I could invoice you and then have like a 10, 15, 20%, at the bottom.
Right.
That would actually...
Yeah, I know it has to be voluntary, but who's to say it's not a voluntary? Can I tip myself? Can Jack tip me? Can I tip Jack? How does this work?
I believe a tip comes directly from a consumer that's buying your product or service, and it would be very difficult to tip yourself, and I don't think that's the intention of how the code was written. However, the ability for you to be able to deduct that $25,000, it's based off of you earning revenue, reporting the revenue, and then getting a deduction based off of what you reported. So it's not that you're not reporting the tipped income. It's just that they're giving you a deduction for the tipped income. It's not that it's not taxed. You're still going to pay taxes on it. You just get to take a deduction for the tipped income that you receive. And this also includes overtime pay. So if you're receiving overtime pay, you get to deduct $12,500 of overtime pay if you're single, $25,000 if you're a married filing joint.
So I saw a study on this recently that 8% of hourly workers get overtime, and it was only 4% of salaried workers get overtime. So the vast majority of people, more than 90%, this doesn't apply to them.
That's correct. Yes, it's for salaried workers.
It seems like a big promise or a big headline to be like, yeah, no taxes on overtime. But when you really get down to it, it's like so few people will apply for that. And then of that, it's capped pretty low based on the overtime, and then it also expires in 2028 is my understanding.
Could incentivize more people to work longer hours, though.
Do you think it's actually going to?
I think for a small percentage of people, real intuitively, I don't think like a large swath of people will be like, I'll work overtime now because I'm not, I had the deduction. Yeah. But I do think it will make a small.
But here's the thing, what's the benefit for the employer? Because my understanding is a lot of employers will really like want you to stop working once you get to that overtime pay. Like they'd rather just bring someone else on at that point to take over the hours.
This is the part that I was really looking for. It doesn't really position it well for the employer. It really positions it well for the employee. The employer is still going to have to pay the payroll taxes and still report it. So you're still going to pay the wages and the payroll taxes on the overtime pay. The benefit, though, is that you're retaining key employees because your key employees that are working overtime are also benefiting from the fact that they get to deduct a percentage of their overtime pay, $12,500 if they're single.
Yeah, but they could do that anywhere, like wherever they work if they're going to work overtime. Like, they might make more just getting a higher paying job, working for their competitor and getting another offer.
But it's another way to build wealth if I'm able to deduct the overtime pay against my federal income because now I'm increasing the amount of money that I get back in the form of a refund.
So is there any way that Jack could pay himself overtime?
There's an income limit, correct?
Yes. If you have over $150,000 adjusted gross income, it starts to phase out. That's correct. You no longer get to deduct overtime pay. But what you could do is position yourself to have a salary and then give yourself a percentage.
There's always something. Right? There's always
give yourself a salary and then work overtime. And then you're clocking in and clocking out. Yeah, absolutely.
But let's say you're doing that, but then you're getting a distribution from an S corp, then it phases out anyway. Right?
Yeah,
so
that's
you
correct.
Couldn't do that.
That's correct because that counts as income.
Who stands to lose the most from the big beautiful bill?
The low to middle income class, and when I say low to middle income class, I'm talking extremely low income. I'm talking $45,000 and less. They may actually see an increase in how much they pay in taxes, but you have to realize a lot of these people that are extremely low income are relying on various different tax credits like the Earned Income Credit or the American Opportunity Tax Credit, tax credits that were essentially set up for people that are extremely low income. Trump is trying to get the lower income people off of any type of government subsidies or any type of government credits. And so the people that are going to benefit the most are people in the middle class that are right over that 50,000 all the way up to millions. And then the people that are going to benefit the less are people that are making right under 48,000.
So my understanding is a lot of those like social welfare programs were getting cut, like Medicare, there's a lot of money that's being cut out of that.
Yeah.
And that's why it's affecting, although everyone's brackets are going down and the percentages are going down, the people that do rely on those welfare programs, they're going to lose a lot of that funding. So technically speaking, like they're getting helped in this way,
yes,
but hurt disproportionately in this way. So the net is that they're being hurt.
You know what? But that's assuming they don't comply with work requirements and check-ins. That's my understanding, is that with a lot of these cuts, there are requirements of now having to work a certain amount of hours or a certain amount of check-ins that is being applied to receive those benefits. So if they comply with that, their benefits aren't going down. I could be mistaken. I don't know if you know more on this than I do. That's my understanding on it.
It's not a whole lot of details yet coming out to light in the Big Beautiful Bill that I've read on that case, but I would determine that if I'm an employer, I would want to track absolutely everything. Why wouldn't I? I wouldn't want to overpay. So I would want to see more information around that.